Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Ollie from MagicHands Hobbies. Today we're going to be painting the Impulsor from the Start Collecting box for the Blood Angels. I've already base coated the model and assembled it and then base coated it. That's obviously the easiest way to do it. If you'd like to see how I did the base coat, it's the same for every model, and the demonstration that I have done is with one of the miniatures itself, one of the standard Marines that will be linked above. I have magnetized quite a bit of it and left it as pre-assemblies. This is for a number of reasons, including making it easier to store away. Let's start with the lining. I'm using Nuln Oil here and just going down into all the recesses and making sure that all of the cracks and crevices have some kind of shadowing. Now you can see I'm not being too careful, and that is deliberate. I don't often like to try and be as precise as possible, and when it's 3-4 foot away from you, you're not really going to notice. You can use the brush to feather in any additional lines, feather out the lines, but as you can see I'm just going to run all the way around all the shadows, all the edges, creating shadows. Be careful not to let it pool. The last thing you want is a staining effect where you end up with too much liquid, too much pigment in one area. I'm now going to be edge highlighting, and I'm using the side of the brush and going across all of the raised areas, or the majority of the raised areas. I'm certainly not doing the entire vehicle. Also, whenever you come across these rivets, just put a little bit on the top of the rivets. You'll see that I've also gone around the rivets with the wash in the previous step as well to give it a bit of a shadow. Right, so with all the edge highlighting done and all the lining done, you can see that it has made quite a bit of difference. Now the next stage, believe it or not, I'm going to put some decals on, and the reason why I'm putting decals on is to allow us to put some chipping effects to the actual miniature, to the decal itself. First of all, I am coating the area with a gloss varnish. This helps with the application of the decals themselves, allows them to slide over the area a lot easier than what it would be if you tried to put it straight onto the painted area. Now, what I should have done was sprayed this through an airbrush or using a rattle can. I didn't have that available at the time, so I'm using a brush. You just need to be careful not to leave streaks behind. Now here you can see I've cut the transfer out that I want. I have put some water on my workspace, and I have put it on top of the transfer itself. I'm going to use the micro set, and you can see it softens the decals and it helps improve the adhesion as well as soften the actual decal itself. And you can use the micro set and micro sol, but I'm only using the one. I've never had a problem with it. Put some of the liquid onto the area, onto the panel that you want to put it on. Apply the decal, put some on the top of it, and this will help soften it. It will help bind it like a glue to the actual surface itself. Now I was using a knife obviously to push this around, but it could be a bit dangerous. You could end up cutting the decal, so be very, very careful. Maybe use a silicone tip modeling tool if you've got one of those. I actually have some, but at the time I wasn't even thinking about it. And I'm going to be putting scratches into this anyway. So I'm deciding how to line it up, making notes on whereabouts, if there's a particular item that I'm trying to line it up with, where I'm centralizing it, making reference to that so that when I go to the other side I can do exactly the same. Now I'm pressing down quite firmly with a paper towel to help absorb it, push the air bubbles out. And I've applied a few others to various different parts of the vehicle. Here we go. And I don't know very much about the heraldry, but I know that I've got a number, I know I've got the campaign markers and the badge that represents the, I've forgotten the word, but the regiment to which it belongs. So I'm making sure that I've got that visible on all sides, and I think I even put some on the roof. So now we're going to take some of the brightest colour that I applied from the base coats, and just put some scratches here and there. Now the idea is you need to try and make it random rather than symmetrical. The more symmetrical it looks, the faker it looks. I'm just going to go around all of the model using the same colour just to scratch up a bit of the transfers here and there. One mistake I did make with regards to this was because I kept using the same colour. When it came to the white transfers, it looked too bright. I should have used a darker red on the whites, but you know, live and learn. Now moving to the interior, painting up the black computer console, also then moving to the plates underneath. I'm not sure what these would be called, there's bound to be a name for them, and applying a silver, general silver, doesn't need to be anything specific, all over the metallic parts that I intend to be showing as metal or rusted metal or any other type of metal that will be coming into it. I always find that silver is a good base coat to start with. Let that all dry out, and then next I'm going to move on to the washes. So I'm going to use a black wash primarily, Citadel Knoll Oil. The brown wash I'm just going to dab on. I've done this many times in other videos, and the idea is it just makes it look a bit grimy, a little bit dirty. Moving on with the tin colour, this is just to provide a bit of variety through the metallics. Now in theory I could have put this on at the same time as the silver, because I'm going to apply a black wash to it. Now moving on to Tesseract Glow, and for this I'm just going around the outside. I want to fill in the rim to give it like a glow. What I should have done here, having watched other videos since, is I should have used a white liner to put the information on there that I want, and then coat the whole thing in the Tesseract Glow, and then it will show brightest on the white, darkest on the black, and it would actually have given a much better effect. But it comes out okay as far as I'm concerned. Just trying to push the paint around in such a way that it makes it look like that the line is moving through the radar and leaving a fade behind it. Reinforcing the front line just to show that that is the brightest point and that is what is going to be moving around the radar screen. There's a bit more of a close-up. Sorry, it's a little out of focus. I'm trying to put some dots on just to show where the enemies are. Again, try not to be symmetrical. Yeah, that's not too bad. I'm happy with it for the moment. Now I'm going to paint up one of the other screens, much in the same way. Having painted up the screens and buttons with a few more extra colours, I've also applied a base coat of brown, khaki brown to the seats. We're just going to stain those up with some of the brown wash that I have. This is the Citadel Agrax Earth Shade. Not trying to get it very smooth here. It's going to have been sat on, it's going to be worn in different places. I do want to get an even coat, but then I'm not concerned whether or not it pools. It's me adding in a bit more texture using another layer of wash, but again, not trying to be too even with it. So I've gone around painting all the metals, all the tins. I've even done the lenses on the tanks. This is me demonstrating the lenses. This is me demonstrating the magnetic options that I have done. Allows you to put virtually any of the weapons on. So now I'm going to go through with some finishing touches. This is Streaking Grime by AK Interactive. I don't normally use it like this. I understand this is how you're supposed to use it. I am putting it around some of the rivets, some of the creases, areas where water is likely to gather and drip down the side of the vehicle. Initially I am just applying as it is, and then what I will end up doing is going back with some white spirit and just smudging it, dragging it and blending it in so it's not such a harsh line. The one thing I'd say with this is to be selective. Less is definitely more. So now we're going to move on to the base, taking off all the items that might drop off during this, because I'm going to be turning the model upside down, and the base that it comes with, you can see I've already glued it to the actual stand, and this one you can actually twist so that it goes around and projects the vehicle into different angles in whichever orientation you decide to place the vehicle. It does mean that you can have it tilting sideways, tilt it sideways and to the front, to the back. There's lots of different things, or you can just spin it so that it is square. Now the intention was to actually have this fully adjustable, glued to the bottom of the vehicle, which would then allow you to twist the vehicle and pose it however you wish to do so. Unfortunately, the slate that I put on here restricts that, and also I accidentally glue the stand in location, and as a result it won't spin. So I apologize for that to the end to the client, but unfortunately I can't get it unglued. So this is me testing out, trying to work out different scenarios, different poses, trying to get the slate to fit, and eventually I come up with a decision. So now I've decided on the pose and where the slates are going to go, their orientation. I'm going to apply some super glue to the underside of the slate, and then we're going to get some accelerant which activates the glue and reacts much quicker to give an instant bond. Super glue is pretty good anyway, it does bond very quickly, especially if you manage to get it on your fingers. For some reason your fingers seem to glue quicker than most other materials. But as soon as this touches, there's a chemical reaction, there is some heat produced. Sometimes it leaves behind a white residue, which is what you can see around the center of the stand. That's exactly what happened. And I have found that if you're not careful, the reaction can actually create a foam, a hot foam that comes out, and then that will solidify. So if you put too much glue on or too much reactant or catalyst, it will actually, it could ruin your model and you end up with the white staining, as you can see. Next we're going to get some standard basic PVA glue, fill in the gaps and all over the base, trying not to get it on the slate if you possibly can. Put quite a thick layer down because the plan is the grit and sand that you can see to the right hand side, I'm going to absolutely pour this all over the base. So here we go, there's a mixture of fine gravel, thicker gravel and some chunks in there as well. I'm literally just going to liberally spread this all over, make a complete and utter mess. Leave it for a minute or so that it gets a bind. Tip off the excess, give it a little tap, and then make sure that you run your finger around the base to remove anything that is stuck to the edge, because believe you me, if I get stuck on there, it's a pain in the backside to paint it over or try and remove later. Now we're going to water down the paint. I'm using some of my, water down the glue. I'm just using some of my dirty paint water. It really makes no difference, but you want it quite runny. The idea being that it will soak into all of the grit and I want to say sand, but it's a very coarse sand if you can even class it as that. You could use a spray bottle for this. I don't have one to hand. I think I got one somewhere in the garage, but just apply it liberally all over the sand and let it soak in. So I've already primed the model black, and now we're going over with a liberal, I'm going to say dry brush, but it is not a dry brush, a liberal brushing of a base colour, in this case Leather Brown by Vallejo Model Game, and just trying to get into every nook and cranny, just cover every single possible area we can. Once that's fully cured, we're then going to go with the next colour, which is Monster Brown. And what we're doing is we're doing a proper dry brush. We are putting paint into the brush, dipping it in a little bit, wiping off the majority of it on a dry paper towel. What this will do is remove quite a bit of the medium, depending on how long you rub the brush for, leaving the pigment behind. You then liberally pull the brush across the item you're trying to paint, in this case the rock, just gently trying to catch the raised areas in smaller and smaller passes. We're applying a second coat of the same colour here, just trying to catch some of the edges and sharp points on the rocks. This will help define the shape of the rock and bring a little bit of realism to it whilst leaving shadows behind. We're now applying a final highlight of Stonewall Grey by Vallejo Game Colour. This literally is trying to catch the very tips, the very edges. I'm being very gentle with it, catching some of the surfaces where I think it needs it, but generally trying to be as light as I possibly can. to the ground cover, I'm now putting on some ivory. I haven't put a specific colour on here. As long as it is an off-white white in like a bone or ivory colour, then that's what you're looking for. Be careful how much you put on. I know this is going to be hidden by the impulsor over the top of this, but you don't want to be undoing everything that you've done. So I'm putting it over as liberally as possible without going down into all the cracks. Then we're going to get some Agrax Earthshade, cover all of the ground cover, not the rocks. What this will do is it will differentiate it from the rocks that are on there, but not so much so as to make it look like it's a completely different type of stone. And then I'm doing one final pass with the Stonewall Grey that will just help tie everything back in. Once that's done, don't forget to paint the rim of the bases. I'm doing all of these in black. You could do them in brown to try and match them into the base, but it needs to be done, you need to tidy it up. Moving on to a few tufts. Not going to be able to see very much of this base, so I'm just sticking the odd one or two tufts with a bit of additional PVA glue to the outside of the base. I'm applying some glue because the stickiness on the bottom of these tufts by the army painter are not necessarily going to be very good at sticking it to a rough surface. If it was nice and smooth, not a problem, I wouldn't bother with the glue, but this just gives it that extra little bond so you know it's not going to fall off. Right, here are some fancy shots just to show you a few angles. I'm really happy with this. I really hope the kid who I'm giving this to is happy with it as well. I know his dad, my work colleague, definitely is. I believe this was one of his favourite armies when he used to play when he was a kid. I really hope you picked something up from it. I hope you enjoyed it. Any comments, any requests, please put them down in the comments below. Thanks very much for your time, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.